Good morning, friends. I want to extend a warm welcome to you today. Everyone is welcome here. This community is a safe place in which we support each other in the sacred task of becoming, celebrate the transcending mystery of life, and rely on the transforming power of love. The theme of today's service is democracy and patriotism. When the service is over, I hope that everyone will stick around for the after-service chats and circle talk, where everyone will have a chance to give voice to their thoughts. The after-service talks are really the most important part of the service. What you have to say is valuable to the life of this community. On Tuesday, we will have our general election. I cannot remember an election that has been so contentious. I have friends on both sides of the aisle that are convinced that if their candidate does not win, that it will be the end of democracy as we know it. My brother told me last week that he's really losing sleep over his fears that Antifa will, quote, burn the cities to the ground. On the other hand, my daughter told me yesterday that she is also losing sleep over her fears that right-wing nationalists will rampage through her city, Chicago, burning and killing. They both use the phrase losing sleep to describe the intensity of their anxiety. It seems to me that we are listening a bit too much to the political propaganda out there. One of the most important things I learned in seminary was not in theology, philosophy, or pastoral care class. I learned it in a course that was titled Practical Ministry. The important learning can be reduced to 5 words. They are step away from the drama. Human beings love drama, and there's lots of opportunity for drama in churches. I've seen church disturbances break out over what color napkins to use for potluck, what style of curtains to use in the church game room, and my personal all-time favorite, whether or not it is appropriate to sing Happy Birthday to Jesus on Christmas Eve. In this election season, there is much opportunity to embroil ourselves in a drama in which our candidate is a hero savior of free society, and the other party's candidate let me start that sentence over again. There is an opportunity to embroil ourselves in a drama in which our candidate is the hero savior of free society, and the other party's candidate is an incarnation of the devil. Don't fall for it. Shut off Fox News and MSNBC. Besides, whoever wins the election, your job remains the same. Tapping into the great uprushing force of the human spirit and learning to live your best possible, most loving and compassionate life. You don't need drama for that. You need calmness and maturity and the spiritual foundations to be a co-creator in the great evolutionary dance of the universe. So step away from the drama being made.
Keely here. I just wanted to give a quick reminder that I'm trying to get Thanksgiving baskets together for the families that I'm working with at Riverwood. There's a basket, there's a big bucket outside the front door at Buff. In the announcements, it has items that can be donated, and you can donate gift cards, and you can always email me or mail me gift cards, however you want to do it, from Martin's or Myers or any place around. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Keely. Are there other announcements? If not, Lisa Fuller has a message for us from the Reverend Michael Slack.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lisa Fuller. Here we are, as mentioned, just 2 days away from this year's presidential election. Because we're living in a time of division and unrest and highly charged emotions, our UUA rolled out this year, UU the Vote, and encouraged UUs to vote love and defeat hate. So over the last many months, UUs across the country have made calls, sent text messages, and mailed postcards, encouraging citizens to exercise their right to vote. Since Buff's inception in 1959, this fellowship has been a voice for social justice, democracy, and voting rights. Buffers, you'll be happy to know, were civil rights and voting rights activists before those acts were even established at the federal level. This year, many buffers have gone above and beyond to get out the vote and return our United States to a path toward equity for all. Nancy Gilpin has been writing and sending hundreds of postcards. Ellen Higdon has been making calls. Vicki Dwyer-Thomas has been spending hours texting. Joan Guilfoyle has been busy delivering signs and literature. And this Tuesday, she'll be in Baroda counting ballots. Thank you to them, and thank you to everyone who's contributed to UU the Vote and other Get Out the Vote efforts. Today, our UU the Vote service component is a prayer from the Reverend Michael Slack. No matter what happens November 3rd or beyond, we know that UUs will always stand on the side with love and lead the way toward justice and equity. May we each be the light and the love that we all need right now.
Amen.
May I be light in you. May you be light in me. Into our hearts, into our souls, let love abide. May I be love in you. May you be love in me. From this place out to the world for all time. Spirit of life, sources of all that ever was and can be, we are guided by all that is sacred within our own hearts and minds to pray this prayer and to live this prayer. We offer up this simple and profound hope that we may be light, give light, and receive light in all the places we call home and in this sacred space that reaches across miles and experiences. That we may be love, give love, and receive love out in the world. May we never forget the impact and power of our voices. May we never lose sight of the songs in our hearts. D. Blanchard reminds us that they can be heard as songs of love or of longing, songs of encouragement or of comfort, songs of struggle or of security and care. But most of all, they are the songs of life, giving testimony to what has been, giving praise for all we're given, giving hope for all we strive for, and giving voice to the great mystery that carries each of us in and out of this world. Today, we hear those songs in all the ways we are learning and growing as communities of faith, hope, and love. We hear them as little ones become young ones. We hear them as loved ones pass from this life and into the unknown. And we hear them in the streets and at our polling places as people of faith and conscience pave the way for a better world, a better understanding, deeper care and accountability. And we hear them in the silences, a deep awareness that there are those among us as yet unheard and unaccounted for. May we never, ever forget the impact and the power of our voices. May we never ever lose sight of the songs in our hearts. May grace and mercy follow us wherever we may go, whatever we feel called to and toward in the days and weeks ahead. Amen. Ashe.
Amen.
And blessed be.
There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere.
I'm using the words of Melanie Davis, the OWL program manager. If ever there were a time for a candle in the darkness, this would be it. Using a spark of hope, kindle the flame of love, ignite the light of peace, and feed the flame of justice.
Amen. And love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And now we have the story for all ages. What does it mean to be an American?
My fellow Americans! Storyteller. Yeah, Green Bear. Storyteller. What did I tell you? Oh, whoa, with the flag. I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. Thank you. My fellow Americans. Keep waving it. Okay. As you know, I expect all of you to be excellent Americans. And what does it mean to be an American? Well, one, it means to vote for Green Bear for president. It means other things. And it also means other things, as I'm told. So this book is going to help you be a great American so that you can vote for me. Okay, thank you very much. Ba, 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 ba. Okay. What does it mean to be an American besides voting for Green Bear for President of the United States one day when he's old enough? Well, there are other things. I mean, aren't there? Let's find out. What does it mean to be a good American? Does it mean liking apple pie and fireworks? Yes, definitely! Well, but don't you know little kids who get scared of fireworks and don't like them? Oh, well, that is true. And didn't you once tell me that you preferred chocolate pie over apple pie? Oh no! Oh no! Does this mean I am not a good American and will never be president? Actually, no. Ugh. Oh, I feel better now. Okay, see? So you can like apple pie and fireworks, but it doesn't mean that makes you an American. Does it mean living in the United States? Well, not exactly. You could be an American living abroad, for example. Does it mean loving fast food? No, you can love fast food from just about anywhere. Do we have more fast food than most? Probably. Being American means believing that all people are equal, and bears are equal, and should have the opportunity to be happy. Play ball! Following our dreams. That's a very big American trait. And working hard to achieve those dreams. Hey, Lady Liberty, isn't she beautiful? It means having the freedom to choose whom we love, what we believe, what we do, where we live. In fact, America was founded on that principle, that you could have freedom of religion, for example. That was one of the founding principles. And another American principle, to change our minds if we want. That's freedom of choice. And you have lots of choices. Look at that. You can choose to love a zebra. You could choose to ride a bicycle. You could choose to love this other kind of creature. You can choose those glasses or those glasses. See? We have so many choices here. Knowing all Americans follow the same rules, honoring those who protect and serve us, that's an important part of being an American. Cherishing our abundant natural resources, moo, and enjoying the time spent outdoors. Selfie time. What does it mean to be an American? Being grateful all year for our many blessings, including Thanksgiving, and leading by example to take action when people need help. What does it mean to be an American? Welcoming people from other countries and helping them learn what it means to be American. Appreciating that our differences make us kinder, smarter, healthier, and stronger. That's because we learn from each other. Using our imagination and creativity to invent new things, and our curiosity and courage to explore new frontiers, even outer space. And then being proud of all that we've accomplished and humble about all we still need to learn. Because, oh, well, you know what this page means? It's really a compilation of all the incredible things that we've done in the United States, like the first cars, and that's the original looking car, modern car. The original supercomputer, and then the modern day laptop. This is where flight was born. Look at the original Wright brothers plane, and then NASA, the space shuttle into space, and voting rights. These are all things that we're proud to have accomplished. But when you know a lot and when you've done a lot, you know that there is so much more to know and so much more to do, and that keeps you humble and working hard for those dreams. Being American means having the right to become your best self and the obligation, the duty, to help others do the same. So, fill your heart with love for who we are, and your mind with ideas of how you, your family, and your friends can make the greatest nation in the world even better. That's right. Even if you're a little kid, you already make the world a better place with the gifts that you have to offer. So make sure that you spread those gifts around.
Thank you, Catherine, for bringing that to us. This fellowship is a community of ourselves. Its resources are our resources. Its wealth is what we share. As we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm our lives within it.
Presenting to you the star of our program, Miss Kate Smith.
Hello, everybody. It is my happy privilege to introduce a new song, God Bless America. While the storm clouds gather far across the sea, let us swear allegiance grateful for a land so fair, as we raise our voices in a solemn prayer. God bless America, and that I love.
Well, I did have some introductory remarks for that song, so I'm going to try to incorporate that into my reading. God Bless America was my grandmother's favorite song, and Kate Smith was her favorite artist. As you watch and listen to the song, you may have been struck by the words of and the images that accompany it, which exalt American triumphalism, exceptionalism, and industrialism. When our co-music director, Nan Lundeen, saw I had submitted this musical number, She said, "Our fellowship is striving to become a green sanctuary. I'm not okay with God Bless America, which aggrandizes skyscrapers and oil derricks. My America has solar panels and windmills. Nan is right. Most of us here have a new vision for America, one in which we do not stand proud as God's gift to the world, but stand in common humanity with other peoples of the world to deal with some very real difficulties, climate change included." When Kate Smith sang the song in 1943, we were embroiled in the largest land war that our species had ever fought. God Bless America evoked a spirit in the individual psyches of our citizenry that enabled them, our parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents, to pull together in solidarity and send our young men and women to other continents to fight and die in the battle against the murderous forces of fascism. It is likely that someone on your recent family tree was killed in that war, as was my maternal grandmother's younger brother, who died in the Pacific Theater and whose personal effects were sent to the family in 1945. To my knowledge, that package has remained unopened for the last 75 years, so great was the grief of my great-grandparents. Now, decades later, who would dare open it? It is too holy of an object. After the song, I will bring a reading, which is now, I will bring a reading titled Patriotism 2.0. In that reading, I will investigate what a new kind of patriotism might look like and what we need to do to get there. So let us continue with my reading here as I skip ahead a little bit. Patriotism 2.0, if it is to be successful, must capture not only a love of country, but a love of all our fellow human beings, no matter what their color, creed, ethnicity, or location on the globe. To that, we must add love of our planet and all its various forms of flora and fauna, its great mountains, prairies, jungles, deserts, rivers, and seas, the vastness of space, and perhaps our destiny to one day travel the stars. Somehow, Patriotism 2.0 must also embody a vision of becoming, a recognition that every living thing on this planet and the planet itself is evolving towards a greatness we can probably not even imagine. Patriotism 2.0 must instill in us the desire to participate in our political system in ways that promote the welfare of all citizens and shuns the violence of racism, sexism, exploitation of the poor, and economic inequality. This, in my opinion, is the kind of patriotism that can spiritually sustain and inform us in these trying times. And by way of footnote, you may think I'm overstating the case when I say that the spirit of a nation supports individuals psychologically and spiritually. I refer you to the rising tide of drug addiction, teen suicides, third world levels of infant mortality, and the decreasing lifespan of Americans. All these things and the general degradation of life for Americans, especially working class Americans, are indicated that we may be a nation rich in cash but poor in health and spirit. You also may be thinking that all of this looks a little like a kind of religion. It is. There's a technical name for this religion. It is called American Civil Religion. I refer you to Robert Bella's Civil Religion in America. Bella's book was a must-read for seminary students in the 70s and 80s. As I have said many times before from this pulpit, the lig in religion is the same as the root for the lig in ligament, which binds muscle to bone. So to relig is to rebind, to reconnect. In the case of our UU religion, to relig means to reconnect to your essential self, your soul, which leads to the authentic life. In civil religion, the religging is back to society. Interestingly, before about 2,500 years ago, before the so-called axial age, all religion was civil religion, designed to connect individuals to society and keep everyone pulling in the same direction. There were, after all, pyramids to build, Assyrians to fight off, and those pesky Indo-Europeans to deal with. Now let's look at a few things I think we could do to promote a strong, vibrant patriotism. That was not a Freudian slip, folks. To do what I am going to imagine that I have, I'm going to imagine that I have just been elected to the office of U.S. President. As President, I realize that part of my function is to be the high priest of our American civil religion, and that one of my priestly functions is to unite a deeply fractured country. My strategy is to bring people together by creating programs that will heal the national psyche by instilling a sense of dignity in the individual psyches of the citizenry and loyalty to a new American ideal of service, peace, and ecological renewal. My vision of a new, more humane America where the inherent worth of every citizen is honored and everyone has the opportunity to contribute to the common good. The first thing I would do in my priestly role as president is institute an annual Day of Atonement, in which all citizens would be invited to fast, wear sackcloth and ashes, and acknowledge that their nation was built on theft of land, near destruction of the environment, the diminishment of women, enslavement and exploitation of Black people, and the near extermination of indigenous populations. It's crucial that we acknowledge our national sins before we can move on and do the work of religion. I would also encourage the Congress to pass legislation establishing an atonement income credit tax for Black and indigenous descendants of peoples we enslaved and murdered to make up for all the wealth they did not receive for the work and sacrifice they put into making America. The second thing I would do as president is to directly address the problem of income inequality. To restore the soul of a nation requires restoring the soul of the individual. Income equality is probably the most demoralizing aspect of our society. Restoring the soul of the individual requires that people be paid rightly for their labor. We have not been doing this for working class people for the last 40 years in this country. In their book, Deaths of Despair, Ann Case, a Nobel Prize winner in economics, Angus Deaton, examine the reasons that lifespans of white American working class people, especially those without a college education, are declining. The numbers are damning. Deaths from suicide, drug addiction, and obesity are hitting working class people, especially working class white men, very hard. This is understandable when we look at the fact that even though per capita income has, in the last 40 years, increased by 85%, working class men and women earn less in real terms than they did 4 decades ago. It looks and feels to them as if they are not being respected and cherished as productive citizens who contribute to the common good. It is also a taproot of our current highly divisive political situation. One thing we learned from the last general election is that working class people, as we all do, crave being valued as contributing members of society and will vote for candidates that promise to restore their worth and dignity by making our country great again, which really is the code for going back to the old patriotism when labor was much more valued. A thing we learned from the COVID pandemic is that working class men and women are much more likely, over 70% more likely, to think it violates their constitutional rights to wear protective masks. I saw a giant pickup truck a few days ago that was flying a flag endorsing a particular political candidate. The flag was captioned, "F rhymes with duck, your feelings." I theorized that the driver, a young man, was definitely not feeling the love, and if he is, like many working class people, feeling disrespected, unappreciated, and abandoned by his country. There are several ways that I would address income inequality. For one, I would encourage democratizing the workplace. This means encouraging unionism on the shop floor and requiring by law that labor have seats on corporate boards of directors with the power of veto. I would retool our trade treaties like NAFTA. It is foolish to think that we can stop globalism. What is possible, however, is to require, before a product enters the American market from foreign soil, that it be at least 50% union made. We will buy from you, but what we buy must be union made so as to enhance the democratic power and pay of foreign workers. We would pay more for foreign products, but better that money end up in the pockets of foreign workers than being paid out for protective tariffs. Further, we will give no priority rights over products made in foreign countries, proprietary rights over products made in foreign countries by American businesses. And by way of footnote, NAFTA has been disastrous for working people on this continent. One good example is the industrial wage in Mexico, which is currently $3 an hour. There are many things I would like to initiate as public policy in this country to create a new spirit. If I were to list them, I would fall way outside my time limit for this reading. There is, however, one last thing I would like to emphasize. I believe that mandatory national service would be a good thing for the youth of this country. If a young man or a young woman were to spend 2 to 4 years in national service, which could include such things as teaching in remote rural areas, our inner city schools, building hospitals, dams, and roads in third world countries, all the while taking courses in civics and pursuing a trade or receiving college credits, it would greatly enhance their life experience, instill in them a love of country, expose them to different ways of thinking, enhance their opportunities of finding a mate, and get them out of their parents' basements. In conclusion, we are in difficult times in America. The environment is degrading. There is massive political division. There's a killer virus on the hunt, and the fabric that has in the past bound us together in solidarity, the American spirit, is in tatters. I, however, remain optimistic. I see a new spirit rising, another kind of patriotism that is built upon the foundations of love, respect, and a shared vision of the common good of all creation. I see it rising in this congregation. And now let us continue with our service.
Greetings, my fellow patriots. Let's celebrate patriotism this weekend before the general election, when we all go out and stand in line to vote if we haven't already. As you can see, I've dressed for the occasion. I'll admit that sometimes I don't feel very patriotic. This is mostly when I see others doing cruel, unjust things in the name of patriotism, like disparaging immigrants, promoting unnecessary warfare with other nations, and demanding unquestioned loyalty to our nation's leaders. I have to remind myself that others don't have the exclusive right to define patriotism. Throwing around labels like un-American and true patriot doesn't give anybody a monopoly on patriotism. These labels are usually just a means of forcing compliance with their way of thinking, kind of like labeling someone a heathen or a slut. We UUs can practice better, more honorable forms of patriotism, one that doesn't involve calling names or wielding weapons against our fellow Americans. Unfortunately, when you look up patriotism in a thesaurus, it offers alternative word choices such as nationalism, chauvinism, and jingoism, which I would argue are not true patriotism at all. You can love your country without thinking it is better than any other country, without worshiping your country as if it is a religion, and without being willing to kill for any cause supported by its leaders. Extreme forms of patriotism, as well as religion, are a tool wielded by those in power to enforce compliance, to motivate their adherents to sacrifice anything, including their rights, their fellow citizens, and their lives for the interests of the ruling class. As with Stockholm Syndrome, extreme patriotism manipulates citizens into identifying with their rulers, often to their own detriment. At its worst, patriotism requires citizens to worship their nation's leaders as demigods, to never criticize the government, and to turn in fellow citizens who do. And citizens comply because patriotism, besides being the law, often feels good. Just like religion, patriotism taps into our evolved need for belonging, cooperation, and meaning. How many things are you willing to die for? For most of history, it's been your nation, your religion, your family, and sometimes, but less often, your values. In the modern world, one of the few occasions murder is officially sanctioned is during wartime. According to Johnston of the University of South Florida, sooner or later, you get to the ultimate test, that the only way you can definitively prove in any sense that you do in fact love your country is, are you willing to die for it? Are you willing to sacrifice life for it? Both yours and others as well. End of quote. So patriotism becomes a very convenient motivator for getting humans to voluntarily die for whatever cause the nation's leaders think is worthwhile. Whether it's access to oil or other riches, the containment of communism, national pride, or in the most honorable case, national defense and the cause of righteousness. George Krettek, professor emeritus of politics at Princeton University, says somewhat cynically We wouldn't have enemies unless our enemies were also patriotic. And William Galston observed, sometimes monsters masquerade as patriots and manipulate patriotic sentiments to serve their own ends. So, how do we practice patriotism without allowing our emotions to overwhelm our reason? How can we love our country without being manipulated into supporting the self-interested causes of our leaders? Not sure if I'm saying this right, but Yuval Noah Harari, an Israeli philosopher, tells us that a nation is basically a fiction or myth that we have all agreed to believe in. Nations have no physical reality. A nation's citizens are almost completely replaced every 100 years. The land borders may change, the laws may change, but we all agree it is still the same nation. In Harari's words, fiction has enabled us to merely imagine things, but to do so collectively. We can weave common myths such as the biblical creation story, the Dreamtime myths of Aboriginal Australians, and the nationalist myths of modern states. Such myths give sapiens the unprecedented ability to cooperate flexibly in large numbers. Our collective myths and our irrepressible drive to believe in myths are what have enabled human survival and dominance. Storytelling, as Jim has said many times before, is an essential part of our humanity. But the thing about symbols and myths is that we can change them. What comes to mind for you when you picture patriotism? For some, it is waving an American flag, visiting Mount Rushmore or the Statue of Liberty, reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, or standing for attention during the Star-Spangled Banner. Those are all outward symbols of patriotism, similar to kneeling at a Catholic Mass. I suspect, however, that those images are not what comes to mind for you. Here's what comes to mind for me. I picture Diane Gibbons going on service trips to clean up or rebuild our national parks. Lisa Fuller and other buffers participating in phone banking prior to the general election. Dave Sara engaging someone of a different political view in a constructive discussion at a rally. Something I observed yesterday. Gloria Weberg, Marilyn Clowder, and others celebrating the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. And buffers volunteering at the soup kitchen, advocating for LGBTQ Americans, or building children's gardens in disadvantaged areas. America is rife with stories of the self-made man who was born in poverty and rose to greatness. Stories of wartime bravery, stories of the great melting pot. We don't need to throw these stories away completely, even if they are somewhat mythical. Despite its faults, our country has achieved a lot of great things. Let's also elevate those stories that emphasize not only individualism, wartime bravery, and economic success, but also cooperation and unity. One of my favorite stories involves the run on banks during the Great Depression. America was on the verge of economic collapse. FDR took to the radio in a fireside chat with Americans, asking them to put their money back in the bank to save the US economy. And that's what most Americans did. What a selfless action, what a leap of faith. A few short years later, as Jim mentioned, and as we all know, Americans entered World War II, possibly later than we should have, and helped free the world of fascism. We then went on to help rebuild Europe and Japan and become close allies with our former enemies. Germany, Italy, Japan. A few decades after that, many idealistic Americans campaigned for civil rights and later LGBTQ rights. We have collectively achieved some great things, which have in turn stood as a guiding light for other nations. Ultimately, patriotism is a verb and not a noun. It isn't a flag or a monument or a pledge. Patriotism, in my mind at least, consists of three types of actions. Number one, and I believe the most important, is respecting and supporting your fellow Americans. A nation is just a concept, but a nation's citizens are real. They can be starving, oppressed, deprived of an education, or deprived of their vote. If any American has their rights taken away, then all Americans are at risk. It is our patriotic duty to treat every American with respect and to advocate for their well-being. This can mean campaigning for environmental justice, donating to a food bank, or helping someone with their taxes. It can involve defending someone against bullying or helping them obtain health care. For some, it can even mean going to war to defend our nation if attacked. but it does not involve threatening or intimidating fellow Americans who disagree with you. According to Ronald Reagan, if we love our country, we should also love our countrymen. We could use a little bit more of that right now. Number 2, in terms of patriotism and your patriotic duty, is respecting and protecting our lands and environment. We are temporary stewards of the lands on which we live. It is our patriotic duty to manage them well and protect them for future generations of Americans. Raiding our national parks and monuments for corporate profits is not patriotic. Rather, respecting our environment takes the long-term view of what is best for the sacred land on which we live. It can involve supporting sustainable farming practices, recycling, or even removing non-native plants from a nearby nature sanctuary. And finally, number 3, the last and I believe the most challenging aspect of patriotism is upholding America's best and most honorable values, such as democracy, equality, and justice. This is challenging because not everyone agrees on how exactly to define these values, and because it is easy to forget their importance when caught up in emotions such as fear and hate. Valuing democracy can mean fighting voter suppression or giving rides to the polling station for those without transportation. Valuing equality can mean using your privilege to raise the voices of the underprivileged. How do you know you are fighting for the right values? Acting for the good of the whole rather than exclusively in your own self-interest. For one, is what you are doing at times inconvenient and uncomfortable? Or does it always align neatly with your own self-interest? And 2, does it involve self-sacrifice? A marriage counselor once told me that if she could sum up marriage in one word, it would be sacrifice. No worthwhile relationship is easy. It always involves some sacrifice. Are you willing to sacrifice in your relationship with your fellow Americans? Will you do what's inconvenient in order to accomplish what is just? I believe you do, and you will. So let's redefine patriotism. Wave your flag as you go to the polls and vote. Wear red, white, and blue as you donate to the local food bank or advocate for expanded health care. Hum patriotic music as you clean litter alongside the highway. And feel proud. Enjoy your connection with your fellow Americans and meaning in your work toward a higher cause. Sportscaster Bob Costas told CNN, wrapping yourself in the flag and honoring the military is something which no one is going to object to. We all appreciate their sacrifice. We all honor their sacrifice. And yet what it has come to mean is that the flag is primarily and only about the military. This is no disrespect to the military. It's a huge part of the narrative. But Martin Luther King was a patriot. Susan B. Anthony was a patriot. Dissidents are patriots. School teachers and social workers are patriots. So I say, go out and be a patriot.
Excellent. We'll build a land where we bind up the broken. We'll build a land where the captives go free, where the oil of gladness
flame is extinguished, but not our hope for the future, our courage in the face of crisis, or the love we share for all the world.
Thank you.